Having completed the mission, I refused to go home. This world had people who worshiped me as a god, and 3 women who had loved me more than life itself. I burned my own lifespan to banish plagues and end droughts. I tore out my own spiritual veins and wove them into mountains, rivers, and lakes. But in the last 10 years of my life, the world seemed to have grown accustomed to my sacrifices. My mother accused me of being heartless. My own sister called me selfish. Even the wife who had loved me more than life itself had found comfort in another's arms. The people who once worshipped me as a god now condemned me as petty and ungenerous. They were all wolves in sheep's clothing. I decided to give it all up and go home. As my consciousness began to fade, the world started to collapse. Flash floods, earthquakes, and tsunamis erupted across the land. Faintly, I thought I heard someone cry my name in a desperate, broken plea. The world's gratitude is no longer sufficient to sustain you. The system's cold, mechanical voice echoed in my mind just as I stumbled upon Eleonora and Julian Thorne in their secret embrace. She was the deepest, most cherished part of my existence in this world. And now, that devotion had become a blade twisted in my gut. Host, you can exchange your accumulated grace for the passage home. Do you wish to proceed? After 10 years, I faced the choice once more. When I first arrived, the system had told me this world was on the brink of annihilation. Once I completed my mission and left, it would self-destruct. But when the time came to depart, I hesitated. I had a mother who doted on me, a sister who cherished me, and Eleonora, who loved me with every fiber of her being. I want to stay. Host, you can exchange your accumulated grace for the passage home. Do you wish to proceed? 10 years ago, that was the choice I made. I offered the system a trade, my own life force in exchange for this world's continued peace and prosperity. If the people of this land are grateful for your sacrifice and honor you in their hearts, you can live on indefinitely. It was meant to be a perfect cycle. Their gratitude would sustain me, and in return, I would live to protect them. But the system had issued a chilling warning. Hearts are fickle. That gratitude will not last forever. Eventually, I would still die. The world would still end. I was young and naive then, thinking that day was a lifetime away, something to worry about after everyone had lived long, full lives, and their hair had turned to silver. I never imagined. 10 years. That's all it took. The people no longer felt any gratitude. The wife who had sworn her undying love was now tangled in the arms of another man. The depths of human indifference were truly staggering. I threw open the heavy doors to the chamber, startling the 2 lovers locked in a tight embrace. Eleonora froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. Caleb, what are you doing here? Her robes were in disarray, and a series of angry red marks marred the pale skin of her chest. Evidence of the passion I had interrupted. Julian Thorne, however, calmly straightened his own clothes, a fleeting, triumphant smirk playing on his lips. Prince Consort, please calm yourself. This is all my fault. You mustn't blame Nora. He looked at Eleonora with a gaze full of feigned sorrow, a deep, performative ache in his eyes. A flash of pity crossed Eleonora's face, and the guilt from being discovered vanished in an instant. It's not Julian's fault. Since you've already seen, there's no point in hiding it. She stepped in front of Julian, her tone firm. I'm going to make Julian a prince consort. An unbearable agony seized my heart, and my eyes burned with unshed tears. 10 years ago, she had held my hand just like this, her voice ringing with conviction as she made her vow. You help me become queen. You are my only husband. We will share this kingdom, you and I. She had named me the sole prince consort, swearing she would have no other as long as she lived. If she broke her promise, she'd said, may lightning strike her down. A vow that grand, that sacred, was now being cast aside so easily. And if I refuse, I finally managed to say, my voice trembling, if I tell you that if you are with him, I will die, and this world will be destroyed. Eleonora's expression hardened into disappointment. Caleb Vance, how long do you plan to threaten me with that excuse? She said coldly. Stop lying. I promise you, in my heart, you will always be my husband. Julian only asked for the title. Don't be so demanding. She had betrayed our vows, given her heart to another. And somehow, I was the one being demanding. I stood frozen, a chill seeping deep into my bones. You promised me. It would only ever be me. I stayed here for you. Enough. Eleonora looked down on me from her regal height. My decision is made. The ceremony will be held tomorrow. Her voice was laced with ice. And Caleb, stop spouting that nonsense about the world ending without you. My gaze was fixed on their clasped hands. I watched as Julian pulled her into his arms. Even if you did stay for my sake back then, she continued, name one queen in history who didn't have multiple consorts. I kept my promise to you for 10 years. I've done right by you. It was a fair trade. Neither of us owes the other anything. A trade. What I thought was a love for the ages was, to her, just a transaction. Do you wish to exchange your accumulated grace for the passage home? My mind was a chaotic storm. I stumbled out of the palace and ran back to the Vance estate in a daze, the system's prompt echoing relentlessly in my head. But I couldn't make a decision. If I left, the world would follow its original trajectory and perish. Everyone in it would die. Countless innocent people, and my mother and my sister. The two people in this world who had once loved me most. Though now, because of Julian, they both despised me and refused to even see me. Still, they were family. They had genuinely, truly loved me once. Just as I entered the estate, I ran into my sister, Serafina, who was rushing out. She saw me and her brow furrowed. I heard you walked in on Nora and Julian. Seeing the anger on her face, a small flicker of warmth ignited in my chest. Sarah, how did you know? Even if she resented me now, she was still my sister. Surely, she was furious on my behalf. I managed a faint smile, about to speak, when she shoved me violently. Julian and Nora are in love. All they want is a title. Why can't you just agree? She seethed. I heard you even threatened to kill yourself, to destroy the world, just to stop them. Caught off guard, I fell backward. My palms scraped against the rough stone, and a sharp pain shot through me, making me tremble. Julian sent word and told me everything, she spat. Caleb, stop using that savior of the world act to make us feel sorry for you. A lump formed in my throat. I couldn't speak. I should have known. My sister was nothing if not stubborn. After our father died, she had shouldered the burden of our entire family. She took his place on the battlefield and was caught in a massive rock slide. She believed Julian had risked his life to save her. From that day on, she treated him as if he were the center of the universe. She laughed for him, cried for him, and made his desires her own. She even helped cover for his affair with Eleonora. It didn't matter how many times I told her that I was the one who had stopped the greater collapse with my own life force, that I was the one who had saved her. She never believed me. I have never lied to any of you. I gritted my teeth against the searing pain and pushed myself up from the ground. I'll say it one last time. I saved your life, not Julian Thorne. I took a deep breath, fighting back the bitterness rising in my throat. Sarah, you've hurt me again and again for his sake. One day, you will regret this. Serafina let out a scornful laugh. Huh, so stubborn. She pointed a finger at me. You'd better not try any of your pathetic, dramatic tricks to stop Julian from becoming prince consort. I shook my head, a bitter smile on my face. Don't worry, I won't stand in their way anymore. A wretched pair like that deserves to be shackled together. Eleonora had already betrayed me. If Julian wanted to be a prince consort, let him. I turned to walk away, but a fraction of a second later, a stinging blow struck my cheek. Who did you just call wretched? Serafina was a trained warrior, and she had put her full strength into the slap. My head snapped to the side, a loud ringing filling my ears. Pain and humiliation washed over me as I stared in shock at my own sister. Our father died young, and our mother fell gravely ill shortly after. We had relied on each other our entire lives. She was years older, full of ambition, determined to carry on our father's legacy on the battlefield. It was I who had spent my own life force to bend fate in her favor, to ensure she had the opportunities and victories she needed to become the revered female general she was today. And now all that strength she had gained was being used against me. Don't think because you're a prince consort you can bully Julian, she warned, raising her hand again, her eyes blazing with fury. If you ever cause him grief again, I won't let you off so easily. Before I could respond, a deafening crack echoed from the heavens. The sky was instantly swallowed by black clouds. The system hadn't lied. This world had always been teetering on the edge of collapse. If I left, it would be utterly destroyed. I walked to the estate's kitchen and prepared a bowl of hearth stew. The world was already showing signs of its end. Should I stay and use what little life I had left to bide a little more time? Or should I exchange my grace for the passage home and just leave? I was torn, unable to decide. What were you arguing with your sister about at the gate? My mother was reclining on a divan, her face a mask of impatience. She completely ignored the blood dripping from my hand. She was never like this before. In the 25 years I had spent in this world, after my father's early death and her subsequent illness, she had never remarried, choosing instead to hold our family together. Caleb is still so young. If I marry again, what would become of him? I was the only male heir of the Vance family. If she remarried, she couldn't have taken me with her, and I would have been left alone. For my sake, my mother chose widowhood, a life of loneliness. I cherished that love. Every year on her birthday, I would cook her a bowl of hearth stew, and she would always eat every last bite with a beaming, grateful smile. That all changed when Julian Thorne appeared, the son of her one that got away, the boy with the same face as her lost first love. After that, my mother no longer cared for my hearth stew. The day Julian framed me for bullying him, my mother had lashed out, screaming without a shred of reason. "You're insolent and cruel. What else can be expected from a boy with no father to guide him?" It was the first time I'd ever seen her so furious. She had smashed the stew I made for her and cursed my father, who had died a hero for this kingdom. From that day on, it was as if Julian had taken my place. He became the son of this house, showered with affection by my mother and sister. He refused to let Julian become prince consort. He even called him a wretched man, my sister announced as she strode into the study, shaking her head with a sneer. "I thought you had more backbone than this. Turns out you just came crawling back to suck up to mother." Her voice dripped with contempt. "You think after insulting Julian like that, a simple bowl of stew will make us forgive you?" My mother's face turned ashen. She seized the bowl I had just made and slammed it onto the floor. "How did I give birth to such a vicious son? I should have strangled you in your cradle." The scalding broth splashed onto my injured hand. The pain was so intense my vision went black for a moment. "Mother, you don't have to kill me," I said, my voice hollow as I stared at the shattered porcelain on the floor. My face was pale. "I'm almost dead already." The system had been clear. The world's gratitude was no longer enough to sustain me. This body would soon fail. This was the last time I'll ever make this for you. But even that last offering had been violently destroyed. My mother's expression flickered, and she opened her mouth to speak, but the study doors were thrown open. Julian was right. You really are in here, playing the victim. Eleonora stood in the doorway, her gaze like ice. Julian was clinging to her, his face pale and drawn. "Caleb Vance," Eleonora hissed, "are you so despicable that you'd resort to threatening suicide just to make us feel sorry for you?" She held Julian tighter. "Julian has had a tragic life. He is kind and patient. Why do you constantly target him? Why can't you bear to see him happy?" All three of them glared at me, their eyes filled with accusation. It was always like this. Ever since Julian appeared, they saw him as pitiful and benevolent, and me as cruel and overbearing. Every single one of them thought I was the aggressor. A cold numbness spread through me. I slowly lifted my head. But he's the one targeting me. He stole my mother. He stole my sister. He stole my wife. He was the one who went around telling everyone that the world's destruction was a lie. That my sacrifice, using my own life to protect this world, was a lie. The people's gratitude dwindled day by day, and with it, my hold on life grew weaker. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. He wants to sever all my lifelines. He wants me dead. My voice dropped to a grave whisper. But if I die, all of you will truly die with me. The room fell silent. Everyone present stared, their expressions a mixture of shock and uncertainty. Julian's face went white, and he suddenly broke into a fit of coughing. "Prince Consort, if you dislike me, so be it. But please, do not accuse me of such a monstrous crime," he rasped between coughs. "Nora, I cannot be with you in this life. For the sake of everyone's survival, I am willing to leave you." He coughed harder, looking as though he might collapse. I laughed bitterly to myself. There was again. The moment he showed the slightest sign of weakness, I became the monster. "Enough!" Eleonora shouted at me, her voice trembling with rage as she supported him. "I am making Julian a prince consort, and that is final. If you push him any further, I will strip you of your title, and we will be divorced." Seraphina's brow was deeply furrowed. "Caleb, for your own selfish desires, you dare to curse the queen and our own mother?" My mother's face was stone. She turned her head away, unwilling to even look at me. I was escorted out by the royal guards and taken back to the palace. The next day, before the eyes of the entire capital, Eleonora wed her second prince consort. The ceremony was as grand as ours had been. "To have Julian by my side is the blessing of 3 lifetimes," she declared, looking at him with a shy, adoring gaze before casting a disdainful glance in my direction. "I want you to watch with your own eyes and see if the world ends when I am with him." My fists clenched at my sides as I listened to the murmurs from the crowd below the royal dais. The queen is finally taking a second consort. It was too cruel, making her stay faithful to Prince Caleb alone for all these years. Exactly. He kept spouting that nonsense about saving the world with his life. It was all a lie. Huh. And even if it was true, he did it willingly, didn't he? Wasn't that the price for becoming Prince Consort? The endless stream of comments reached my ears, each word a drop of poison, filling me with a bitter, hopeless despair. 10 years and not a single heir. What right does a useless man have to demand the queen remain his alone? She should have found another man to bear children with long ago. Otherwise, who will inherit this great kingdom? I stood on the dais, staring blankly at the people who now regarded me with nothing but cold mockery. I once had a chance to have a child with Eleonora, but just as we were trying, the system warned me of a catastrophic earthquake that would strike the capital and kill countless people. To save them, I exhausted nearly all of my life force. I lay in a coma for half a year. After I woke, the world's gratitude for me was so low that it was barely enough to keep me alive. There was nothing left to spare for raising a child. And now, my childlessness had become their reason to scorn and attack me. In a daze, the system's words came back to me. Hearts are fickle. That gratitude will not last forever. How true it was. 10 years ago, I chose to stay and save them all, and I didn't regret it. But now, as Eleonora stood on that stage, holding Julian's hand with a sweet smile on her face, as my mother and sister looked on with expressions of pure relief, as the people below cheered and celebrated. This world's gratitude is no longer sufficient to sustain you. Do you wish to exchange your accumulated grace for the passage home? The system's prompt sounded again. I closed my eyes and made my final choice. Yes, I wanted to leave now. There was nothing left here worth staying for. The people were ungrateful. The ones who had loved me were gone. Exchange successful. The passage home will open in 2 hours. The moment the voice faded, I saw the sky above instantly turn a deep, bloody red. From the distant south, I could hear the roar of a colossal wave. A sky of crimson. It's a sign of great fortune, my mother exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her face. Julian and Nora truly are a match made in heaven. The crowd of thousands knelt and bowed, their cheers echoing through the capital. But amidst the thunderous applause, I heard the system's cold, final notification. World destruction sequence initiated. I didn't spend my last 2 hours in the royal palace. The entire place was alive with celebration for Eleonora and Julian's wedding. I quietly returned to the Vance estate and opened the door to the long-sealed rear courtyard. I lay down on the bed I had slept in as a child and closed my eyes. Meanwhile, a thick, oppressive layer of black clouds gathered over the capital. No one noticed. In the palace, Julian and Eleonora were lost in each other's arms. My mother and sister raised their glasses in a toast, overjoyed for Julian. The city's inhabitants prayed for the queen to conceive a royal heir soon. The moment I drew my last breath, a brilliant flash of light tore across the sky. Thunder boomed like a roaring beast, and a torrential downpour began. In a bustling tavern, patrons stared out the window in shock. Why is it suddenly raining so hard? The last time it rained like this was 10 years ago. Someone muttered, and the mood in the room instantly shifted. 10 years ago was when I had completed my mission and was preparing to leave. The world's destruction sequence had begun then, too, starting with a downpour that lasted for a solid month, submerging countless towns and leaving fields of floating corpses. It was I who had willingly stayed, trading my life force to pause that destruction. Now that I was dead, the world's end was finally back on schedule. Don't be ridiculous. What are the chances of a once-in-a-century storm happening again after just 10 years? Yeah, impossible. I floated in the air, watching coldly as the rain grew heavier and water flooded the streets. By the third day, the water in the capital was thigh-deep. The once relaxed faces of the people were now etched with growing panic. Prince Caleb said. He said our world would be destroyed, and that he saved us. This rain just won't stop. The crops are all flooded, and our food reserves have been washed away. The streets were rivers, filled with the floating bodies of drowned rats and other animals. But Prince Julian said Prince Caleb was lying, that the world wouldn't be destroyed. Then you make the rain stop. If you won't go, I will. The crowd, shoving and shouting, finally broke and ran into the deluge, kneeling before the palace gates and crying out my name. At that moment, Queen Eleonora was reveling in the hope of a new life. Just 3 days after her wedding to Julian, the royal physicians had confirmed she was with child. Do you think Prince Caleb will be unhappy that you're carrying this child? Julian asked, his hand on her belly, his eyes welling with tears. Will he try to harm my child? Eleonora's face hardened. He wouldn't dare, she snarled. He couldn't give me a child in 10 years. He almost left me barren. It's a mercy I haven't stripped him of his title already. Her voice was filled with venom. Don't you worry. He will accept this child. In fact, he'll serve me happily until it's born. And the moment it is, I will name our child the crown heir. Julian lowered his head, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. Before he could sow any more discord, a massive tremor shook the earth. The ground buckled and groaned. The solid walls of the palace twisted and warped before collapsing with a deafening roar. Eleonora, who had managed to scramble to safety, clung to Julian, her face as white as a sheet. The once pristine palace grounds were now a mangled ruin, littered with the dead and dying. A surviving palace guard, his face streaked with blood and terror, ran towards them. Your Majesty, it's terrible. The palace is surrounded by citizens. They're all on their knees, begging for an audience with Prince Caleb, he cried. They're pleading for Prince Caleb to come out and save them. The color drained from Eleanor's face. The people of the capital had waded through the raging floodwaters only to be met with a devastating earthquake. By the time Eleonora reached the palace gates, the scene before her was one of pure horror. Mothers clutched the bodies of their children, their screams tearing through the rain. Men and women with missing limbs stared blankly at the dead, their faces smeared with blood. Some were scrabbling at the rubble with their bare hands, digging for loved ones, their fingers raw and bleeding. The queen is here. Where's Prince Caleb? The moment they saw Eleonora, the crowd surged forward. Prince Caleb was telling the truth. Bring him out to save us. The rain continued to pour, washing over the rivers of blood on the ground. When Eleonora just stood there, stunned into silence, the mob went wild and stormed past her into the palace. Not in the throne hall, not in the royal chambers. Prince Caleb isn't in the palace. Where else could he be? One person cried in panic. Another grabbed Eleonora by the collar of her robes. Where did you send him? I don't know. I haven't seen him in 3 days. Eleonora stammered, her face a deathly pallor. I've been with Julian these past 3 days. It must have been her and Julian. They drove Prince Caleb away. He must have gone home. We have to go to the Vance estate. Yes, where else would he go? He must be at the estate. Like a crazed beast, the mob descended upon the Vance estate, dragging my mother and sister from their beds where they lay in a drunken stupor. Where have you hidden Prince Caleb? Bring him out, he has to save us. Serafina stared at the blood-soaked faces of the crowd, her expression bewildered. What's happened? Why are you looking for him? This rain? This earthquake? How can you two possibly be sleeping through this? Someone spat. Now tell us where Prince Caleb is. My mother, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. What do the rain and the earthquake have to do with him? Don't tell me you actually believed his nonsense. Prince Caleb once said that as long as he lived, he would keep us safe. If he died, the world would be destroyed. A hush fell over the room. Another clap of thunder ripped through the sky, shaking the very foundations of the world. The color drained from everyone's faces. Find him. Something must have happened to him. They tore the estate apart. Finally, in a room where I had slept as a child, they found my body. My mother's face went rigid. Her hand trembled as she reached out to check for my breath. He's really dead. My sister stood frozen in place. Caleb wasn't lying. Her voice was filled with a dawning horror. He's dead, and the world is really ending. Eleonora turned bone-white and rushed forward, grabbing my lifeless hand. Impossible. He can't be dead. She shook my body desperately. You promised you would stay with me forever. You promised you would grow old with me. How could this happen? It's all your fault. A woman lunged from the crowd, clawing and striking at Eleonora. You just had to be with that Julian Thorne. You broke Prince Caleb's heart. And you too. Others turned on my mother and sister, their fists and feet flying. We all heard. Ever since that Julian showed up, none of you treated Prince Caleb right. Eleonora staggered under the blows, muttering to herself, but he said that as long as people were grateful, he wouldn't die. So how could he be dead now? The attackers froze. A collective understanding seemed to pass through them as they stared at my corpse. Watching the farce unfold, the bitter resentment I had suppressed for so long finally overflowed. I could only shake my head and laugh. Before the disaster, no one cared. But in an avalanche, not a single snowflake is innocent. But we were just listening to what Julian Thorne said, someone stammered. It was him. He said Prince Caleb was a liar. The crowd looked at each other, a new, shared target solidifying in their minds. Yes, and he's the one who turned the Vance family against the prince. He seduced the queen and drove Prince Caleb to despair. With a furious roar, the mob turned and charged back toward the palace. Get the true culprit. We'll trade him to get Prince Caleb back. There is no limit to the madness of desperate people. Julian Thorne was sitting on the queen's throne, daydreaming about his future son being named crown heir. The next moment, he was violently dragged to the floor. The mob surrounded him, unleashing all their pent-up hatred. Their terror of the world ending, their despair for the future, their grief for their dead loved ones. It all rained down on him in a torrent of violence. Julian shrieked in agony, begging for his life. "Nora, save me. I'm the father of the child in your womb," he screamed. "Godmother, save me for my father's sake. They're going to kill me." "Sarah, I saved your life. You have to save me now." My sister stared down at him, her face dark. "Did you really save my life? Or was it Caleb?" She remembered all the things I tried to tell her, and her face contorted in pain. "Caleb told me. He spent his own life force to help me, so many times." My mother, pale and shaken, looked at him with utter disappointment. "You wanted to be a prince consort. We would have helped you. But why did you have to spread those rumors? Why did you turn everyone's hearts against him? Out of affection for his father, and for the face he wore, my mother had been willing to grant him anything. But she never imagined he would be the cause of their doom." "Insatiable greed," Eleonora whispered, her voice trembling with a chilling rage. Being a prince consort wasn't enough. He probably wanted Caleb dead, so he and his son could take his place, could rule the world. She lunged forward, kicking him again and again. "It was you. You killed Caleb." The rains in the capital had not stopped, and news of a catastrophic tsunami in the south had arrived. The death toll was unimaginable. People prayed to any god that would listen, their cries of despair echoing through the ruined city. Someone had an idea. They would sacrifice Julian Thorne to the heavens, and they would round up everyone who had ever shown me disrespect and force them to repent before my body. Prince Caleb is a divine being. If we appease his anger, he will surely forgive us and come back. They dragged the mangled, barely human form of Julian Thorne and tied him to a high platform. Suddenly, the rain stopped. The sun, a sight unseen for days, broke through the clouds. "It's working! It's working! Burn him!" The crowd roared, driven mad. My mother and sister were bound and thrown to the ground, spat upon by the very people who once revered them. Those who had mocked and ridiculed me now knelt, smashing their foreheads into the muddy earth, their faces a bloody pulp of regret. They turned on each other, hating, fighting, blaming, and soon the ground was littered with more bodies. Cries, screams, and curses filled the air. They had all gone mad. I floated above it all, a silent spectator to the grotesque, hellish scene below. I wanted to scream, to rage, but all that came out was a sigh of resignation. As for Eleonora, she had lost all semblance of a queen. She sat to the side, cradling my body, her eyes vacant, staring into nothingness. It was as if the chaos around her didn't exist. Just days ago, she was wrapped in Julian's arms, telling me our life together was nothing more than a trade. Now, she sat by and watched as her people sacrificed him to the heavens, clutching my corpse as if she had lost her entire world. "Caleb, I was wrong. I was so wrong," she whispered, kissing my forehead, her face streaked with tears. "Please come back. I'll share my life with you. From now on, I'll be faithful only to you. I don't want anyone else." A pang of sorrow shot through me. So, she did remember. When I first completed my mission, I had told her everything, that I was from another world, and that this one was about to be destroyed. After hearing it all, the first thing she had said was, "Go, quickly. If death is my destiny," she had told me then, "I want you to be safe." That fiery, all-consuming love in the face of annihilation was what made me stay. When she learned that I needed to consume my own life force to sustain the world, she had shrines built in my name across the kingdom. She made sure the story of my sacrifice was known to every man, woman, and child. The gratitude of the people became a constant stream of life-giving energy for me. What happens if, one day, people are no longer grateful? I had asked her during a quiet moment, our bodies intertwined. "I will always love you. I will always be grateful to you," she had vowed with absolute sincerity. "I will share my life with you." Those were the happiest days of my life. A queen devoted her kingdom to sustaining me, and a people worshipped me with true gratitude. But as time went on, the gratitude I felt from the world grew weaker and weaker. What hurt most was seeing Eleonora's eyes begin to wander, lingering on new, younger men at court. She started avoiding my touch, refusing to meet my gaze, complaining that our life had become dull and predictable. And then Julian Thorne appeared. She became secretive, evasive. She started carrying the scent of another man. When I, filled with a growing dread, told her that the flow of gratitude was diminishing and that I feared my life would run out, she had waved it off with an indifferent shrug. It was all just a story anyway. How much longer do you expect us to play this game with you? I thought she had truly forgotten everything we had shared. But today I understood. She remembered all. Pretending to forget was just an excuse for her betrayal. Its beginning, the system's voice intoned, its light glowing faintly as it observed the frenzied mob below. Burn him! The fear of death had curdled into a murderous rage. The pyre beneath Julian Thorne erupted in flames, which climbed hungrily and engulfed him in an instant. In them, someone pointed, and the mob dragged my mother and Seraphina into the fire. Their discordant, strangled screams tore through the air. The people of this world were all great sinners from other realms, the system said, its voice devoid of any emotion. They were destined to perish. When you stayed, you gave them a chance to survive. They did not cherish it. This is a self-inflicted doom. As it finished speaking, the sky itself was torn asunder. Tens of thousands of burning meteors, trailing thick black smoke, screamed down toward the earth. The crowd stared in stunned silence for a moment before their screams joined the chorus of destruction. The ground groaned and split apart. Prince Caleb was telling the truth. It's the end. The few survivors threw themselves before my corpse, their pleas and wails echoing across the dying land. Eleonora's cries were ragged and broken as she slapped her own face over and over again. I hovered in the air, a profound sorrow filling me. It was too late. If they had shown this devotion, this gratitude, just a few years ago, I would still be alive, a healthy guardian of this world, protecting every one of them. But now, I had already decided to go home. When can we leave? I urged the system, unable to watch any longer. The passage home had been open for some time, yet the system kept me here. You are my most exceptional host. After sacrificing so much for them, you deserve to see the final act. The system flared with a brilliant light, and my spiritual form suddenly materialized in the sky above them. Prince Caleb! It's Prince Caleb! Someone screamed, pointing up at me. Save us! Please, save us! Eleonora stared at me, her face a mess of tears and dirt. Caleb, I'm leaving this place, I said, my voice calm as I looked out at the scarred and broken world. I gave a bitter smile. You must fend for yourselves. This was always your intended fate. If I hadn't intervened, all of you would have been dead 10 years ago. To hell with fate. You can't go. Get his body. Don't let him leave. Someone shrieked, and the call ignited the crowd like a drop of water in boiling oil. That's right, don't let him go. Make him stay and save us. If he leaves, we all die. I bet he still cares about his own body and his family. They clawed madly at the charred, unrecognizable forms of my mother and Seraphina. If you leave, we'll kill your mother and sister. Another group lunged for my corpse. If you leave, we'll defile your body. We'll whip it, grind your bones to dust. They threatened, their faces twisted into manic grins. Even a god couldn't possibly ignore that, right? An icy chill washed over me as I looked down at the people I had once protected. Their humanity had been warped into something demonic. This world was an utter disappointment. Eleonora shielded my corpse with her own body, her tear-filled eyes locked on my fading form. Caleb, go, she screamed, her voice raw. Just go. I was wrong. You never should have stayed 10 years ago. She wasn't pleading for my love now, only urging me to escape. You shouldn't have wasted your life on wretches like us. My mother, barely clinging to life, dragged her scorched body across the ground to block the path to my corpse. Anyone who wants to touch my son's body will have to get through me first. Her face was blackened by soot, but she managed a dry, rasping smile in my direction. Go, Caleb. Tears streamed down my face. Seraphina grabbed a rock and smashed it into the head of a man reaching for my body. Be safe, she mouthed, her voice gone. A brilliant light blazed in the sky, and my form dissolved into the crimson heavens. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the real world. Here, I was an orphan with no family, but I felt a long-lost sense of belonging. The system never appeared again. The days passed one by one. Then, one quiet night, I had a dream. The world from my memories, once so beautiful, was now a colossal tomb. It was a desolate landscape of broken ruins and fields of corpses. The earth was a barren, cracked desert, and embers drifted on the wind like malevolent fireflies. The entire world smelled of burning grease. In a clearing, a mass of people were frozen in a crawling position, their faces locked in expressions of grotesque horror, all straining toward a single point. At the end of their desperate crawl, several figures were huddled together, their bodies arched high in a near unnatural posture. It was clear that even in death, they had been protecting what lay beneath them. Their bodies were charred black, but their heads were all lifted, facing upward. I followed their gaze and felt a complex wave of emotions wash over me. They were looking in the direction I had departed, and beneath their protective arch lay the corpse I had left behind in that world. I woke with a start, staring out the window at the pre-dawn sky. Then the system, long silent, suddenly came online. I negotiated with the main god. I have secured psychological compensation for you. Its voice was as mechanical as ever, but for the first time, it felt warm. You acted with pure intentions and were met with betrayal and pain. You deserve to be compensated. So that's where it had been all this time, fighting for me. I looked at the impossibly long string of numbers that had appeared in my bank account, and the bitter, complicated feelings from the dream vanished instantly. Host 00729, this is truly farewell. The system's light flickered, bidding me goodbye. I wish you a happy life in the present world. A sharp, golden red ray of light pierced the darkness, and the newborn sun bathed the world in its glow. I opened the window, took a deep breath, and smiled. The sun was rising. End.